guys, how are you? I hope you're all doing very well. This evening I'm going to be doing a movie review. This movie is a horror film from the United States, English language, released in the year 2016, directed by Mike Flanagan, and this film is called Hush. So Hush is about this young woman who's a deaf mute. She lives alone in the woods. She's got a big house, and on this particular evening she's invited a few friends around. So when her friends leave, she realises that she has an unwanted visitor who happens to be a psychopath that is hell-bent on tormenting her and then killing her. So he even tells her himself she can lip read, and he says that it's only when you beg for death that I'm going to come through and kill you. So he's playing a lot of mind games, and this is where the woman realises that in order to survive the night, she is going to have to try and fight back against him, but it's going to prove very difficult because she can't actually hear him. So it's going to be a very complicated fight, and who comes out the winner is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Hush. I actually hadn't heard of this film before I saw a few reviews on YouTube, and when I actually saw that this was available on Netflix, I thought, this movie could impress me. I really like The Strangers. After seeing the trailer to this film, it reminded me of The Strangers. So I thought to myself, okay, not many expectations coming into it, but I was going to allow it every chance to really impress me. And impress me, it certainly did. I thought this was a very fun horror film. It's a throwback to the good old-fashioned atmospheric horror. It's, the kind of horror that is not made very often these days. The movie doesn't rely on violence, it doesn't rely on sex, it doesn't rely on shocking you. It just relies on the slow tension of the build-up. You've got the very atmospheric sort of psychological aspect of the setting, where the windows of opportunities aren't really present for this main character, so she has no other option but to fight. And that, to me, it relieves a lot of the frustrating qualities that a lot of other horror films have, is because you see a lot of windows of opportunity to escape, and because they don't choose that option of escape, you feel that they bring it on themselves. So you get a lot of frustration. You can disconnect yourself from the character because you know you're watching a movie. You know that the sole purpose of this character staying there is so that the movie can be longer. So you kind of feel that you can disconnect yourself a little bit, and it does take the scare factor away. But in movies like this and The Strangers and other similar sort of secluded environments, you feel that help is very far away, and that they just can't run away because it would be suicide. So for that, you get no frustration in it, and you're able to connect to the situation. I thought the situation was very terrifying. It was very subtle in the way that it was doing it. I thought that the movie, it's very quick. The movie, it goes for 80 minutes, and there are problems with some of the continuity in the film that I'll go into a little bit later, but it doesn't derail anything. I thought there was no soundtrack which didn't dictate when you should be feeling scared or when you shouldn't be feeling scared, and I really like the idea that this woman was a deaf mute, because it proves something a little bit different within a very simplistic way of storytelling, is that she has a dilemma that not only is this guy after her, she can't actually hear him, and so that proves a very difficult sort of obstacle, and you're constantly wondering how she's going to come about in trying to know when he is coming, and so that level of suspense there is always present, and I think it always captures you, and it always absorbs your attention, and you can invest your time in what's going on. So I really like that. I thought the acting from the main character was good. I thought she didn't have much to play with. She didn't talk at all in the film, obviously, and so it really did rely on her body language, and I thought her body language was very good. You could sense that when she was scared, you could sense when she was upset, when she was in pain, and I just thought that her performance was great. It's a very difficult performance, but it was a performance that I thought she really took on very well, and she executed it in a very impressive fashion. I thought the villain was decent. I actually thought the villain was a lot better at the start of the film. I'm not going to tell you what happens, but at the start of the film he was much creepier. Then something happens that does take away the creepiness quite considerably, because it kind of humanizes this monster, this basic psychopath. And I know a lot of films out there, it's important to humanize these monsters because you can't, disconnect yourself from them. You can't say that they're supernatural. They're actually human beings, and human beings doing this to each other is actually quite horrific in itself. But I thought this movie would have been a lot better if they kept the villain the same way he was at the start of the film. I thought it was a lot creepier, but then when he basically changes a little bit, then you think to yourself, okay, well, this guy's not really that intimidating. And so it does lessen the impact a little bit. But having said that, I still thought that this guy played a very good role. He was very sadistic. He was playing a lot of mind games, and you really want to see him lose, and you really want to see this main character win. And so I just thought that there were a lot of elements intertwined within a very simplistic way of storytelling, and in the end what you get is a very good atmospheric experience. So Yeah, the cinematography was excellent. Most of the film, if not all of the film, takes place in the evening, so it is very dark, it is very morbid. There are violent scenes that actually are quite shocking, but they're few and far between. So it's not focusing on any lazy aspects that a lot of other horror films focus on. It actually focuses on bringing you something of a very tense and claustrophobic atmosphere. So if you like that kind of style, then you're really going to like this film. Unfortunately, there are problems to the movie. Now, my biggest problem is that there is a lot of repetitive quality to the film, is that it actually felt like it had a short story idea that was kind of dragged out a little bit, and there were some scenes when he's circling the house that you feel that it's a little bit of deja vu. So I just thought to myself, okay, it goes at a brisk pace, but there are moments in the film that it actually feels like it's just going around in circles. It's not progressing forward, and so that to me was the biggest obstacle in the film. But fortunately, it doesn't derail it because it doesn't go for very long. But I just thought there were moments where, okay, there was a lot of filler that it really didn't. It made its point, but it really didn't go forward. It just kind of circled the same material just to make it go for a little bit longer. And so that was my biggest criticism. And another criticism I have is that it kind of contradicts itself a little bit at the end. I'm not going to tell you anything about what happens, so don't worry about that. But there were moments where I thought, okay, this woman was in this situation, and the way she comes out of a situation, it kind of contradicts how she was before. And so that was another problem I had with it. It does get a little bit generic towards the end, and it doesn't, as I said, nothing ever derails it with its negatives, but I just thought the movie could have been an absolutely brilliant film if they kind of polished up a few of the shabby areas. But overall, I thought this was an impressive film. If you are a fan of films like The Strangers, then you're going to get a lot out of this. I think this is a little bit better than The Strangers, and it's definitely a film I'd recommend if you want some fun on a Friday evening. So overall for Hush, going to give it 3.5 stars. Go out there and see it. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. So next time you watch your movies, and I'll see you later.